Welcome to the channel, and in this video I wanted to talk about one of my favorite movies, 1987's Near Dark, that was co-written and directed by Kathryn Bigelow. She originally set out to write a western, but then she and her co-writer Eric Red decided to make it a hybrid film incorporating a grounded and straightforward take on vampires in a modern western setting. They wrote the script on spec, meaning they just wrote it on their own without being paid by a studio or a producer. Veteran producer Edward S. Feldman got a hold of the script since he knew Eric Red from producing his prior script of 1986's The Hitcher. He loved the script but wasn't keen on having Kathryn direct it. She had only co-directed a movie prior to this with 1981's The Loveless, starring Willem Dafoe. Feldman told Kathryn that he would let her prep the movie, but when it came to shooting, that he would give her 3 days, and if he didn't like the job she was doing, that he would replace her. But this is Kathryn fucking Bigelow, and of course she did a great job. I mean, she would later go on to be the first woman to win Best Director at the Oscars for The Hurt Locker. She was given a $5 million budget, and the majority of the film was shot over 40 nights. She hired Adam Greenberg as her cinematographer, who was coming off the success of the first Terminator movie, and that's not the only tie this movie has to James Cameron.
His name is James Cameron, the bravest pioneer.
As 3 actors from his movie Aliens were used to make up the nomad vampire family. Bill Paxton was the first to get the script and loved it and immediately told Lance Henriksen about it. Lance originally wanted the role of Severin that Bill Paxton was up for, but would be cast as Jesse, the leader of this group of vampires. He really got into character by having nail extensions put on, a facial scar, and lost a bunch of weight by starving himself. He would even fill in more of Jesse's backstory, with it dating all the way back to the Civil War when he was first turned.
Put it this way, I fought for the South.
South.
We lost.
Lance would have been good in the role as Severin, but Paxton absolutely nails that character and is clearly having a lot of fun in the role. He even improvised a lot of his lines and had a book of terms that cowboys would use back in the day, and would sprinkle in some of those words throughout the movie.
Hey Jess, that guy smell like a dead polecat.
Jeanette Goldstein was the other actor to be hired from Aliens to be in this, and she plays Diamondback, and she does play up a lot of that same toughness as her character Vasquez from Aliens. She can be brutal and ruthless, but she keeps it all under control as opposed to the chaotic Severin.
Oh, you?
Before casting those 3, Kathryn called James Cameron for his approval, as she didn't want it to come across as her poaching his actors that he likes to work with. Cameron didn't mind at all, and there's even a little bit of a nod to Cameron and the Aliens cast in the scene where Caleb is walking around town, and we see a movie theater in the background, and on the marquee it says Aliens. Another reason why she cast those 3 actors was because since they went through a rigorous shoot on Aliens, that they would now have good chemistry, and she was absolutely right about that. Bill Paxton and Lance Henriksen's real-life friendship is on display, and even though they are ruthless vampires, their camaraderie really comes across, and that was something Kathryn really wanted to show, which was this dysfunctional makeshift family of nomads. The other 2 members rounding out our group of vampires are Homer and May. Homer is played by Joshua John Miller, a vampire that was turned at a young age and is now cursed to live out his days as a young boy, despite being decades older than how he looks.
Pull yourself together, old man.
But he does use it to his advantage when it comes to getting blood. We see in the sequence of the film where all the vampires separate and find their victims for the night, and Homer pretends to be a kid who's seemingly been knocked off his bike, and when someone walks over to check on him, he then strikes. It's pretty brilliant. Like, who wouldn't pull over if they saw some kid who looked like they were hit by a car or something? And despite looking like a kid, he seems to be enjoying his immortality by smoking cigarettes and toting a gun. But his character does take a sinister turn towards the end when he tries to turn Caleb's younger sister Sarah, so he can essentially be with someone that can relate to growing old despite being trapped in a younger looking appearance. This would end up leading to his demise, but Joshua John Miller would go on to be in another one of my favorite genre films, Class of 1999, and he's gone on to have a nice writing career and wrote the really fun horror comedy, The Final Girls. At the center of the film is the love story of Caleb and May. May is played by Jenny Wright, who turns Caleb after venturing around town with him for the night. Caleb is played by Adrian Pasdar, who wasn't a fan of the horror genre, but the script won him over. Plus, being the lead in a Kathryn Bigelow film is a pretty easy choice. A majority of the film is Caleb trying to fit in with these vampires while continuing his budding romance with May, and May was the latest inductee into this fucked up family after being turned by Homer 4 years ago, so she doesn't have decades-long experience, or even centuries-long experience in the case of Jesse and even Severin, who drops the line,
Hey Jesse, remember that fire we started in Chicago?
and that was in 1871. Caleb can't bring himself to kill and relies on May to quench his bloodlust. The vampires then bring him to a bar to make his first kill, and that leads to one of the best scenes in the movie. They lock everyone inside and proceed to terrorize the local bar patrons. Diamondback slits the throat of the waitress and she bleeds out into a beer glass. Severin antagonizes one guy and he gets him to beat up Caleb. And then Caleb ends up punching the dude so hard the stuntman's wig falls off. Bill Paxton is having a lot of fun in this scene and improvised a lot of his lines.
Finger licking good.
He also kills the bartender in a really interesting way by slitting his neck with his spur, but Caleb doesn't end up making his first kill, even after May tries to make him jealous by dancing with the last surviving bar patron played by James LaGrosse, who would go on to work again with Catherine in 1991's action classic Point Break.
Rock and roll.
Caleb does redeem himself when they come under attack at a motel from the cops that were called by James LaGrosse's character. Caleb runs out of the motel room in daylight trying to cover himself up with a blanket, but he's still burning up, and kudos to the stuntman for this scene for sure. Caleb gets shot up before making it to the van and ramming it into the motel for the rest of the vampires to hop in, and they narrowly escape the cops. That heroic moment ends up winning over the vampires, and Caleb is rewarded one of Severin's spurs. But that budding camaraderie is short-lived, because while all of this is happening, Caleb's father and sister have been looking for him after seeing him get abducted in the beginning of the film. Caleb's dad, Loy, is played by Tim Thomerson. He's a really good actor and is probably best known for the Transfer series, but he also worked on a few other Charles Band productions like Doll Man. Caleb is reunited with his dad and sister after bumping into them at another motel, and Caleb chooses his real family over the vampires. He wasn't given much of a choice as Homer was threatening to turn his sister, and Severin and Jesse weren't going to think twice about killing Caleb's dad. Loy is a rancher or a farmer, and Caleb asks him to do a blood transfusion since he sees some equipment that would be used for one. Now, they don't go into detail how the transfusion cures vampirism, and I think that may have been deliberate or to keep some ambiguity to the film, because we don't know if this is 100% the cure, or maybe it's temporary and that vampirism is more of an infection or a disease that can subside given proper treatment, but it's always there. And like I said earlier, Bigelow was going for a more grounded film. There's no wooden stakes, no missing reflection, no asking for permission to go inside, no crosses, no garlic, just immortality, a bloodlust, some heightened abilities, and an extreme skin reaction to sunlight. And honestly, I like this approach more to vampires than the classic lore. They feel scarier and are way more unpredictable. The transfusion is successful and Caleb is seemingly cured, which brings us to the climax of the film, which is pretty awesome, where it starts off with a fight between Severin and Caleb, which sees Caleb ramming a semi-truck into Severin, and that's not enough to kill the crazy son of a bitch, so Caleb blows the truck up. After that, Caleb tries to save his sister Sarah, who's been kidnapped by Jesse and the gang, but luckily May still has a heart and risks her life by jumping out of a moving car with Sarah in broad daylight. Homer jumps out after them but has nothing to protect himself with from the sun, and he just blows the fuck up. Usually the vampires duct tape and spray paint their vehicles so no sunlight can get in, but you can tell this plan to get back at Caleb was hastily put together because the car is now catching fire, and Jesse and Diamondback realize the gig is up and drive the car till it explodes. May is then given a transfusion to turn her back human, and I assume she has the same blood type as Caleb, or maybe he's a universal donor. The movie ends with a still frame with them embracing one another, and isn't that just sweet? The movie didn't make much money at the box office, unfortunately, plus it came out the same year as the other 80s classic vampire movie, The Lost Boys, and I noticed this time around that both movies have very similar iconic shots of their vampires standing on top of some sort of hill at night, and all we see is their silhouettes. It's a very cool looking shot, and maybe it's a coincidence, but who knows. The movie did review well, and the movie didn't hinder Bigelow's career trajectory, and it would garner its fan base on home video. The movie was released on Blu-ray back in 2009 by Lionsgate, and that was the last time the movie was released on home video here in the States. I've heard people make jokes about the artwork looking more like a Twilight movie, and they are absolutely right. They make Adrian Pasdar look like an Edward Cullen type, which couldn't be further from the truth, since he spends most of the movie sweaty or covered in dirt and grime, but I get why they made the cover that way since it came out during the peak of Twilight's popularity. Plus, Lionsgate owned both properties, so it makes sense to have some sort of corporate synergy. And I wonder if it worked. Like, did some Twilight fan buy this thinking it was just another romantic teen vampire flick? Let me know if that was you in the comment section below. There is a really great 45-minute retrospective documentary on the film that I think was ported over from the Anchor Bay DVD release. Pretty much all the main cast and crew were interviewed for it, except Jenny Wright, who played May. Towards the end of the doc, Bigelow did express making some sort of a follow-up to the film, but that obviously has never happened, and it's been quite some time since Catherine has made a genre film. There's been rumors for years about a new 4K or even just a new release to put the film back in print, since this Blu-ray would cost you a pretty penny on the secondary market. Not sure if Lionsgate still has the rights, but if they do, I'm sure they'll put it out in their Lionsgate Limited line or their Vestron Video Collector Series. And with my luck, they'll announce it as soon as I drop this video, like when I made a video about Daybreakers. The movie was also released on UMD for the Sony PlayStation Portable. I had no idea this was released until maybe 10 years ago. I came across it on eBay, and it was an instant buy for me. It was put out by Anchor Bay, and they put out a few movies on UMD. I'm still on the hunt for their release of Hellraiser. No special features were added to this release, but honestly, I'm just happy I can watch this whenever I travel. And yes, in the year 2026, I still carry a PSP when I travel. Last I checked, this UMD is pretty affordable as opposed to the Blu-ray. Your best option when it comes to owning this is to get the DVD that Anchor Bay put out back in the day. Or shit, maybe you could get a VHS copy because it doesn't seem to be streaming anywhere at the moment. It's not even available on demand, so we may be further out from a new home video release, but I at least have 2 ways of watching it, so suck it. Thanks for watching this video on Near Dark, and let me know what your thoughts are on the movie, and if you still have hope for a new physical edition in the comments section below. I'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, have a movie time.
Check out time.